Namaskar. Welcome to the Government e-Marketplace. In this module, we will introduce you to GPA, GeM Pool account, the process of opening and maintaining GPA account, the available payment models and the process of making payments through GPA. The topics covered in this module are Introduction to GPA, Opening of GPA and Processing GPA. Introduction to GeM Pool account, GPA. GeM Pool account, GPA, is a special purpose bank account opened, operated and controlled exclusively by each NPAE, non-public financial management system, PFMS agencies or entities. The GeM Pool account can be opened in any of the banks integrated with GeM. The buyer would credit the projected value of contracts or supply order into the account before placing an order on GeM. The payments to the suppliers would be made from the GeM Pool account post successful supply and acceptance of goods and services on GeM portal. Role of bank or NPAE or GeM. Role of bank is: the bank operates GPA account as per MOU signed with NPAEs in accordance with GeM terms and conditions. Roles of NPAE are: 1. Opens and operates GPA. 2. Maintains projected value for active transaction in GPA account opened by them. 3. In adherence to MOU, SLA for buyers have been defined for timely payments. Roles of GeM are: 1. Process of transactions subject to requisite credit in GPA. 2. Provide real-time information or instruction online to both bank and NPAE, subject to the transactions. Procedures for opening and maintaining a GeM Pool account. 1. The NPAE will nominate and authorize a nodal officer for GeM to open and authorize the GeM Pool account, henceforth known as GPA. 2. The NPAE can select any banks which has been enabled for GPA integration with GeM. 3. The NPAE will open the GPA which will be utilized by the buyer through GeM platform, owned and maintained by SPV as per SLA, and solely for procurement of goods and services on GeM. 4. The operation manual for GPA between bank and NPAE should be based on the procurement guidelines of GeM. 5. The bank will provide relevant information to the NPAE in mutually accepted MIS format. 6. NPAE cannot withdraw the unused amount. It can only be released by GeM. 7. In case of order cancellation or rejection, the unused amount, after order completion, will be released back to the same head of account by GeM. GPA models. GPA has two models. 1. Challan model. Funds are transferred in the GeM Pool account after the demand or intent has been finalized. After that, a challan is generated on GeM, using which the buyer funds the required amount in GeM Pool account. 2. Non-challan model. A floating amount released on procurement forecast is maintained by the buyer in the GeM Pool account. In this model, no challan is generated as GeM Pool account is already funded. We will now take a look at the challan GPA model. A challan will be generated on GeM portal before the order can be placed. The buyer will then fund the pool account with the projected value of the order before order placement. The credit process in challan-based GeM Pool account differs for products and service orders. In case of product orders, the buyer will make arrangements to credit 100% of the projected order value before the order creation. Whereas, in case of services orders, the buyer will have to make arrangements to credit funds in GeM Pool account as per the services billing cycle. the funds will be equal to projected value of service order as per services billing cycle. Registration of Challan model by NPAE. Once an NPAE primary user is registered successfully on GeM, they need to add the GPA details to ensure seamless payment. The primary user will have to register a secondary user as the PAO and enter the payment authority code in GeM. In case the primary user does not have the payment authority codes, the same can be generated on the GeM portal. We will now take a look at the non-Challan GPA model. In the case of non-Challan GPA model, the buying authority would keep a floating amount in the pool account, which would be used for all purchases made on GeM. No Challan would be generated as the account is pre-funded by NPAE. It may also be noted that this model has an additional verification process by the NPAE's nodal officer to approve the usage of the account by the primary user. Let's take a look at the procedures in which the primary user selects GPA as the payment mode. Open the GeM website, that is gem.gov.in, and click on the login link. After logging into the primary user's GeM account, first click on the My Account link and then on the Payment Method link. In case of new registration, NPAE will have to select GPA as the primary payment mode. If the NPAE is using Challan GPA model, they will have to click on the checkbox Challan GPA system and then enter the threshold limit in INR. The primary user will then have to enter the bank account details in the respective fields and then click on the Save button to submit the details. The bank account details will then be sent to approval to the buyer's nodal officer. Once it is approved by the nodal officer, the account can be used for order placement. If the NPAE is using non-Challan GPA model, they will have to click on the checkbox Non-Challan GPA system and then enter the threshold limit in INR. The primary user will then have to enter the bank account details in the respective fields and then click on the Save button to submit the details. This page shows the format of the email received by the nodal officer for approving the use of GPA account. The confirmation can be given by clicking on the link at the bottom of this email page. Clicking on the link opens an approval screen in which threshold limit as well as the bank account details are displayed. The nodal officer can confirm their decision by clicking on the Accept or Reject button at the bottom of the screen. Clicking on the Approve button shows the message of successful approval. Let's take a look at the procedures on how a primary user can generate a PAO code. In the primary user's account, click on the user's link and then on the Manage Posts link. While registering the new PAO, if you already have the PAO code, then click on the Yes Radio button and then enter the PAO code in the field provided below. After entering the details, click on the Add Post button to add the new post for the PAO. If you do not have the GPA PAO code, click on the No Radio button and then select the GPA account from the drop-down list. Select GPA account. Clicking on the button Generate PAO code will generate a PAO code. Let's take a look at the procedures for fund blocking by the buyer. Before creating an order, the buyer will have to first block the fund in the GPA. For doing that, they will have to enter the order details and also select the DDO from the drop-down list. In case the payment mode selected is GPA Challan model, the buyer will have to then click on the button Generate Challan. Once the Challan is generated, the buyer can click on the View Generated Challan link to view it. Here you can see the Challan details generated by the system. After sufficient funds are credited to the pool account, the buyer can block the funds by clicking on the block button. After clicking on the block button, system will display a confirmation window. The buyer can click on the OK button to confirm the blocking procedure. The buyer can then click on the OK button to proceed further. On the other hand, if sufficient funds are not available in the account, while clicking on the block button in the financial details page, system will display an error message showing the reference number. It may be noted that in case the order is an ICT-based one, the buyer can place their order by selecting the others payment method without blocking any funds. Let's take a look at the payment procedure to the supplier after crack generation is completed. The payment process is triggered after the successful supply of the products, its acceptance and the online issuance of crack by the consignee as per the prescribed timelines. Once the crack is successfully generated by the consignee, the buyer will then have to create the draft bill as per the crack. After that, when the PAO processes the payment through GPA, payment will be credited to the seller's account. In case the buyer has not initiated the payment process even after 10 days of crack generation, the system will automate the release of the payment. Let's take a look at the GPA payment terms. The GPA mode of payment has the payment terms of 80% to 20% of the total contract value. The first payment is due or payable within 10 days from crack generation provided POD, proof of delivery is attached. The next, that is, second payment is due or payable within 35 days from the date of the disbursement of the initial payment. In case the buyer fails to initiate the bill within the stipulated time period, auto payment is triggered by the system for each of the case. The payment process can be user or buyer driven or system initiated. This can be viewed in the status mentioned in the payment type column. In case of serial number 1, the payment of amount INR 160 is system driven, that is auto-generated, as the buyer has failed to initiate the bill in spite of crack with POD being in place. On the other hand, in serial number 2, the payment of amount INR 40 is user or buyer initiated as the draft bill has been generated and the payment will be done accordingly. In case of a CPSE buyer, a relaxation in terms of time frame for payment due date has been given. A CPSE buyer may configure the payment terms of 80 to 20 as follows. The payment shall be due within N days of the crack generation, with a POD being mandatory as well. The second payment shall be due within N plus 35 days. The number of N represents the number of days the buyer can configure or select during bid duration. It may also be noted that in case the CPSE buyer does not exercise the payment terms due date at the bill level, then the normal rule of 80-20, with the first payment payable within 10 days from crack generation and second payment payable within 35 days from first payment disbursed, shall hold good. Here we can see the field in which the buyer can manually enter the number of days for payment. It may be noted that the value entered should be between the numbers 11 and 200. Finally, let's take a look at the bill summary page for GPA payment method. In the process bills page, the buyer can search for the bill which is due for payment. Clicking on the Show Bills button displays the bill summary details. In order to proceed further, the buyer can click on the Process Bill button. The status of the bill can be viewed under the column Payment Status. It may be noted that in case of auto-release of payment, due to failure of the buyer to make timely payment, statutory deduction LD charges and other deductions, if any, will not be taken care of by GeM. Thank you.